today we're covering something a little spookier, a little different, you know what I'm saying? Last few videos, you know, they were about aliens, you know. It's fun, it's not really that spooky unless you're actually getting abducted by one. But, you know, aliens are fun, they're not that spooky, you know. They're something so far away it almost seems like something we never really have to face ourselves. However, what we're talking about today could happen to any of us at any time. And that is going missing. And in particular, missing 411 cases. For those of you that don't know what missing 411 is, missing 411 all started with a guy named David Paulides. And David Paulides wrote a few novels called Missing 411. David Paulides is a ex-police officer who is now an investigator / writer, and he wrote these books called Missing 411. And they're all about people who go missing in weird situations, usually in national parks or state parks or just vast areas of nature. In these stories, there's usually some really weird stuff that happens around these people going missing. For example, they'll end up way up on the top of a mountain, even though it was impossible with the gear that they had to end up on top of the mountain, but that's where their body was found after they were missing, and just weird stuff like that. Now, just to be clear, I'm not here to say that whatever happened to these people is 100% something supernatural or something not supernatural or whatever. I'm just telling you the stories because I thought some of them were interesting, and I thought maybe you guys would get some pleasure out of hearing them like I did. Alright, so let's get into the stories. So, without further ado, our first story starts at Penman Mine in western Idaho. Freelance filmmaker Terrence Woods is working on a film set with 12 other people. A lot of the stories that I read kind of like give mixed reports on whether he was 26 or 27 at the time. I read multiple articles that he was 26 and multiple articles that he was 27, so I'm kind of getting a mix on that. He was used to filming in more rugged parts of the world, so this wasn't his first time kind of filming in like the middle of the mountains, for example. And he was filming a reality TV show, believe it or not. So, before we really get deep into the story, it's important to point out that before Terrence left on this film trip, he had texted multiple family members and friends saying that he had a bad feeling about the trip, that he wasn't really looking forward to it, that he was dreading it overall. That being said, his friends and family later said that there was nothing really alarming about those texts. It was just something that were included in a lot of the articles as something that might have been hinting to him being, you know, having a bad feeling about what was going to happen to him or whatnot. But his friend said that this was pretty normal behavior for him, and that there was nothing particularly weird about him saying that he didn't really want to go working. I mean, it's work. Nobody really likes work, especially if you're working on a reality show on a film setup in the middle of the mountains. I mean, come on, it can't be that great. So here's where things started to get a little weird. Terrence is supposed to be at his job through the middle of November. However, his dad got a text from him on October 5th telling his dad that he was going to be leaving early and that he planned to go home early on October 10th instead of November. That being said, he didn't give any explanation to his dad for why he wanted to leave early. He just said that he wanted to leave and that he was coming home on the 10th. His dad tried to ask him why, but he never got a reply back. And that was the last time he heard from Terrence. That day, the crew of the film set said that Terrence started acting weird. He was very to himself and just seemed like something was on his mind all day that day. He just seemed especially quiet and withdrawn compared to how social he usually was. Toward the end of the workday, Terrence had to pee, as people do, and he decided to step off to the side. You know, they're in the middle of the woods in the mountains. He steps off to the side of the mountain to take a pee. And so he decides to pee like kind of on the edge of this cliff. Not like a giant cliff, but kind of like at the top of this hill area. And one of the producers looks over, sees Terrence about to pee, whatever, turns around, and then looks back, and Terrence is gone. And so he's like, what's going on? Darts over to where Terrence was, assuming he wanted to make sure Terrence was okay. But when he got to the cliffside, Terrence was gone. He couldn't find him anywhere. He's looking around. He's like, where's Terrence? So he looks down, and he sees Terrence's radio just sitting there on the ground at the top of the hill, just sitting there by itself. Terrence gone, the radio's sitting there. So the producer, he kind of like edges over to the cliff to kind of peek down off this cliff. It's like a very steep hill. It's not necessarily like I said, it's not drop off cliff, but it's very steep. And so he kind of edges himself over and he's like, looking, trying to see Terrence. And when he looks down the cliff, he sees Terrence is bolting it. I mean, Terrence is going full speed, darting down that cliff, just running away from them. Why? We have no idea. I mean, he's not looking back. He's not waving. He is just Forrest Gump running as fast as he can down that cliff, like super fast. And the producer tries yelling out to him, tries stopping him. He doesn't know what to do. He's freaking out. So a couple of the producers decide, like, we got to chase him, and they go after him down the hill, and they start chasing him where they thought he ran through the woods, and they just started getting further and further and further away from where their camp was. And so eventually at some point they were like, the further we go in here, we're just going to end up getting lost too. We should contact the authorities and see if some people can come down here and help us find him. Because, at this point they had looked everywhere and they couldn't find him anywhere. Plus they were afraid that if he saw them chasing him and he was having a mental breakdown or something, he was scared of something, maybe if he saw them chasing him, they were afraid that that would make him run even deeper into the woods and that he would just keep going and going and going. Whereas if they stopped following him, maybe he would stop somewhere and it'd be easier to find him in the future. Which, I guess, it kind of makes sense, but... So they go back, they contact the authorities, and a huge group of people go out and start searching for Terrence. They're looking everywhere. That being said, they never found him. And not only did they never find Terrence, they never found any evidence of him whatsoever. They never found him a shirt, a pair of pants, a shoe, nothing. The dude was gone forever. And they never heard another word from him, never saw him, and they couldn't find him. No matter how big the search group was out there, he was gone. Which, begs the question, well, what was he running from? Why was he running? Was he running from the crew? Did the crew do something to make him want to leave? Did somebody threaten him and he felt unsafe there and he felt like he had to leave? Did he have a mental breakdown? Did he just want to run away on his own free will and live in nature the rest of his life? Who knows? Maybe something overcame him and he just felt like he had to run down that hill. Who knows? But it's one of the weirdest disappearance stories I've ever heard of. And to this day, I still have no idea why Terrence took off down that hill that day. Now, I should say, before we kind of go past the story, there are rumors amongst Terrence's family and some others that Raw TV, the people he was filming the reality TV show with, that they were trying to hide what really happened to him and that they had been a part of it somehow and that they were doing whatever they could to kind of cover it all up. So that's another theory, is that maybe they had something to do with it. They hid everything, they covered everything up, and then that was it. So, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that possibility as well, because that is something that his family has mentioned in the past, Terrence's family, that they think might have been the case. But other than that, we don't really have any good leads as to what could have happened to him, and at the end of the day, he's gone, and hopefully one day they'll get some closure. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Raw TV has something to do with it? Do you think that he went missing on his own free will? Do you think something lured him out there? Do you think he saw something and he got scared and took off running? Let me know. Alright, so the next story is especially strange when you consider it took place on the exact same day as the Terrence Woods disappearance. And on top of that, it took place only 56 miles away from where Terrence Woods went missing. So a lot of people have speculated that it might be connected in some way, that whatever took Terrence or whatever lured Terrence might have been connected to her. Anyways, I've gone too far. Let me tell you the story, and then we'll come back and kind of evaluate everything. So, 76-year-old Connie Johnson worked as a cook at a camp out in the middle of nowhere. It was a camp called Ritchie Outfitters, and it was based in Salmon, Idaho. Now, the only way to get out to the camp was either to walk the miles and miles through the woods to get there, or to travel by horseback, which is what a lot of it was a hunting camp. So it was one where like men would go out there, stay there. She would cook for them, take care of them while they were like going out and hunting and whatnot. So a lot of them would take their horses out there and then ride the horses back with all the gear on. There were no roads out to the camp. No vehicles could get out there through all the terrain. So the last time anybody saw Connie was on October 2nd, 2018. So just a few years ago now. This was just 4 years ago. So basically what happened was a few hunters left to go out hunting and left her alone at the camp, as they usually did. She was there alone with her dog. And, you know, she stayed there alone all the time. This wasn't anything different. You know, it's not like they were leaving her alone for the first time ever. You know, she was used to being out there alone. She had even worked as a U.S. Forest Service wilderness ranger at the Moose Creek Ranger Station for a period of time. So the guys leave on the 2nd of October, and they say that they talked to her the next day. So they talked to her supposedly on the 3rd of October. But they said the transmission between them over the radio was really weird, choppy. It sounded like she was saying like weird stuff. They couldn't understand anything. That was very like, you know, they couldn't hear what was going on. Now, when they got back on the 5th, Connie and her dog had vanished. They could not find them anywhere. No sign of a struggle, no sign of anything. They were just both gone, and that was it. The only thing that they found was Jackie's gun sitting on a table with her jacket laying on top of it. That was the last sign of Connie that they could find at the cabin. No, you know, like I said, no sign of struggle. She was just gone. You know, this is somebody that knows, you know, she might be 76, but she knows how to survive in the wilderness, and she has all the geared equipment there that she would need to do so. So they contacted the authorities, and a huge search went out. You know, most of the people she knew were hunters and people that spent a lot of time in the forest, so they knew this area very, very well. And so this was a huge search, and they could not find Connie anywhere. They never found her. Just like Terrence, she completely vanished. They couldn't find any tracks. These trained hunters could not find any tracks, no trails, nothing leading away from the place. Now, this is the good news, and you'll be happy to hear this if you're an animal lover. 3 weeks later, Connie's dog was found, alive. He was emaciated, but overall he ended up being fine and survived the ordeal, even though he wasn't able to tell the full story of what happened, or any of the story really, because dogs don't know how to talk. He was found 15 miles away from the camp, by the way. That's an important detail. 15 miles away from the camp by himself, the dog. 15 miles. What's that about? You know, to this day, neither Terrence nor Connie have been found. No sign of them whatsoever. Gone within 60 miles of one another. Vanished into thin air. We're left with no answers, just more and more and more questions as to what could have happened. Now, I mean, could it have been a bear that took both of them? Maybe Terrence took off and then got grabbed by a bear, or a mountain lion, or God knows what. But if it was a mountain lion or a bear, 100% there would be tracks leading away from that camp, especially where Connie was taken. So I'm not sure how that's possible for her to just have vanished into thin air. Something had to have taken her and taken her alive and light on their feet and just dipped out of there. Even with the dog chasing them, which I'm sure either the dog ran away in fear or it chased them. Or maybe she lost it and just started walking out in the woods. Who knows? But even if that is the case, she was never found. And I just wish sometimes that dogs could talk, man. Because, you know, if dogs could talk, imagine all the crazy stories we would have. I mean, dogs have probably seen some of the wildest stuff you could ever imagine. And we'll never get to hear those stories because those idiots didn't learn how to talk. I love dogs. Now, the last story of the three, and this is the one that I've been really excited about. You know, this is the one that's been boiling up inside me, the one that's been on my mind a lot lately, and the one that I'm excited to share with you guys. I mean, I'm excited to share the other ones with you guys too. Those are cool or like whatever, but this one is pretty cool, like extra cool, in my opinion. I mean, maybe I shouldn't use the word cool to describe like a person going missing, possibly like being dead. So like, it's not actually that cool, But yeah, let's just get into it. So, last story, my favorite of the three, the craziest of the three in my opinion, and honestly, in my opinion, this might be like one of the craziest disappearances of all time. I mean, I have yet to hear any other stories that really blew my mind like this one did. So, on January 25th, 2002, 20-year-old Christopher Thompkins was working on a survey crew walking down this road in the middle of nowhere. Their job site was in a place called Ellerslie, Georgia, which I had never heard of before, but I looked it up on Google Maps, and I mean, it's mostly the middle of nowhere. Especially the area where they were walking down, it was just like this forested road. So the way that it worked was that it was a 4-man work crew, and they would all be about 50 feet away from each other. So one guy would be in the front, then the next guy would be behind him 50 feet, and the next guy would be behind him 50 feet, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So Christopher, the man of the hour, the man that we're talking about, was in the back of the line. So he was the very last one on the survey crew. So the man in front of Chris is kind of having a conversation with Chris. They're kind of looking back, ha ha ha, you know, like joking around, talking, you know, as they walk along. You know, it's probably a pretty boring job. You're just walking down these, you know, roads together. And so they're talking, you know, he kind of says something, keeps walking, says something, keeps walking. And he says at some point he says something and he doesn't hear anything back. So he turns around and he's like, doesn't see Chris anywhere. Chris is gone, completely vanished. So he thinks, oh, Chris probably like went to use the bathroom or whatever, like Terrence did in the other story. Looks around, can't find him anywhere. So at some point, the 3 men are looking around, and they find a boot of Chris's wedged in a barbed wire fence, like stuck to a barbed wire fence off to the side of the road, a little bit. And so it's kind of at this point where they're like, we should probably like reach out to our supervisor and kind of call them. So they reach out to their supervisor, and the supervisor has to, you know, get the emergency contact information for Chris, and they call the authorities and try to get authorities there, and it takes a while. So, you know, hours pass before like the authorities are able to get there. But eventually, like, a big search crew was made, and you know, tons of people came out for it, and they kind of surveyed the whole area, surveilled the whole area, searched the whole area. Another thing was that his tools and some change from his pocket was sitting on the ground in the middle of the road where he had last been standing. So, you know, there's a lot of speculation about, like, did something pick him up and turn him upside down so the change would come out of his pocket? You know, what might have happened that could make that change? I mean, he must have got hit like insanely hard for that change to come out of his pocket. And if he was just gonna run away, why would he take that change out of his pocket? It just doesn't make any sense. So time goes on, months actually, and they find nothing of him. There, you know, aside from the boot, the change from his pocket, his tools, and a little bit of lint that they found, or fabric from his pants that they found, they couldn't find anything. And so 5 months passed, I believe, and a farmer, he finds the other boot of Terrence's about a mile away from where Terrence went missing. So something either took him a mile, or he ran a mile and lost his other, you know, with only one shoe, and then lost the other one in the swamp water, and just left without it. You know, nobody's really sure what happened to Christopher. That being said, that was the last thing they ever found of Christopher's, and they were never able to find him or any remains or any clues as to where he could have gone. He just vanished off the road, you know, in the middle of nowhere. Nobody knows what could have happened. There's a lot of speculation about it. Some people think it's Bigfoot. Some people think it's aliens. Some people think, you know, if it was aliens, why would they drag him through the woods and leave his boots on some barbed wire and in a swamp somewhere? I mean, you know, I love aliens, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think this one really makes sense. I think it, you know, it had to have been an animal or something, you know, if, you know, or he ran off on his own potentially. I'm not really sure, but it doesn't really make sense why he would have just ran off and just kept running forever and they never found him. You know, eventually, if you just keep running without food or water, you're gonna die, especially without shoes. So I don't really know. And it's January. You gotta remember, this is January in Georgia, so it's cold, and he doesn't have boots in the middle of a swampy area. I mean, it's very unlikely that he would have survived for long. I mean, something else must have happened, in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think. Leave some comments. Give me your theories. I want to hear them. All right. Well, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, night, whatever it might be. Let me know in the comments if there's any videos that you might want me to make in the future. I know somebody mentioned the day in the life in New York video a long time ago, and I've been wanting to make that, so I'm going to try to do that in my next 1 or 2 videos. And then I'm going to keep doing maybe some missing person ones, maybe another UFO one. I don't know. We're just going to feel it out as we go. Whatever I find interesting, I'll just make it a video and, you know, give it out to you guys. And yeah. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and until next time, I will see you soon. Peace.